I'm Ira Joy, and welcome to On Courage, a podcast that explores a fundamental virtue for each one of us, no matter our backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives. After a career setback, I wrestled deeply with self-doubt and fear, eventually realizing that in order to rebuild my confidence, I had to start by rediscovering my courage. I've been reading books and listening to experts, but I figured I needed to be surrounding myself with courageous people too. And that's why I'm here with you as you listen today, hopefully on board my mission to learn from creative people who have harnessed the power of courage to find success in their careers and fulfilment in their lives. This is a podcast on courage for all those who, like me, long to grow a little more courageous each and every day. Today's guest is Christie Flora. She's the owner of Floor and Order, a business that's all about helping people better manage their time using a heart-centered approach. It was great to chat with Christie and learn more about her leap of faith from the traditional 9-to-5 working life into entrepreneurship. She has so many great nuggets of wisdom about being receptive to the signs around you, learning to listen to your body, managing overwhelm, and just trying new things on your way to living the life that you desire. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Hi, Christie. Welcome to the On Courage podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So I might kickstart by asking you to introduce yourself, just a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Great. Yes, well, my name is Christie Flora, and essentially I'm on a mission to eliminate overwhelm. So I am a holistic time trainer, and I give people tools and techniques to find more space, success, and enjoyment in their everyday. So I'm very much about heart-centered time management rather than push, squeeze every second out of everyday time management.
And I'm sure we'll get into the nuts and bolts of your work and what you do, but I might get you to think a little bit further back. When you think about your childhood and even your adolescence, were there any significant moments or experiences that first ignited your passion for the kind of things you're doing now?
Well, essentially, my parents were diplomats, so we were traveling the world when I was younger and packing up house every 3 to 4 years. So organizing was just part of how I grounded in the new country, how I felt okay about the move, and how I settled into stuff. So from there, it was just like every house was different, every situation was different. And so it was playing with the space and having fun with that. And I really got a lot of joy out of that. And I suppose like an element of control, feeling like, okay, I have control over this. So from that, my childhood of moving around so much, and I think from that I also developed a bit of a minimalist attitude about things, but also about time and what I wanted to concentrate on. And from that, Floor and Order was originally a house organizing business. So I took that passion of organizing things to into the business, and then was helping people in their house to organize things. And then once I realized after some years that organizing things, although I love it and it was so much fun and it felt like play, as a business, it wasn't what I really wanted to focus on. So then I started focusing on the time and helping, because everything comes back to time. So I'd be helping people organize spaces, and then they'd be complaining that they didn't have the time to continue with that project. So then it was all about finding that time to help them continue with that project. So yeah, it was all about organizing things. And also back in childhood, like my parents were very big on going to museums and galleries, and so I was always interested in people's things and the things that we attach meaning to. So I think helping people organize things at home, like, which is essentially like your personal museum, your personal gallery. That's how that all interrelated. I've always enjoyed things and organizing them.
I really love that analogy that, yeah, your home and your belongings are kind of like a museum as well. It's a treasure trove of the things you've collected over time, which is quite beautiful when you think about it that way, and learning to honor those things and respect those things in the way that you
Yeah.
live. So, do you think you were quite aware of this as a young person, or that's just you thinking about it now? You can kind of define more your sort of your nature, or was it something that you remember being, I'd imagine you were a very organized student and very,
Mhm.
and clean and orderly at home, but was it something you think you were aware of as a child?
I don't think I was. I like it was always a way of being for me. It was just kind of who I was. And then when I was in the federal public service in Canberra, and it wasn't till there that people started saying, like, pointing out, like, oh, you're really organized, or you fit a lot into your week, or your desk is really organized. Can you help me with that? Or kind of pointing it out. And then someone had said to me, like, your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. So often what we find, oh, that's just me. This is just how I do things. Someone else is really wishing that they could do that. So that was my ordinary. My ordinary was like, this is how I make sense of the world. This is how I go about doing things. But for someone else, they were like, oh, I really wish I could do that, or wish I could organize like that. And I wish my desk looked like that. And so then eventually those sorts of comments started making me aware of, oh, this is actually not quite a common thing, and gave me the courage, I suppose, to package that up into a service.
That's really interesting. I think it's that the idea of listening to others. Well, what you've said
Mm,
there is just paying attention to how others are responding to you to give you clues
mm,
about yourself. So I think that's an important thing to note, because perhaps we don't, not many people do that a lot. Like, it's interesting when you said to me that you started hearing these comments and people giving you sort of hints to your skills and your gifts, I suppose. I just wonder if in my
mm.
own life, if I did that enough, or what was the motivation to pursue certain pathways. So for you, aside from those people kind of whispering things in your ear, what were some other big influences on your decisions to pursue this path? And so, especially because you mentioned you worked in federal government, so I'd like to know, like, first, what got you into that sector, and then what sort of helped you move and consider entrepreneurship.
Wow. It's hard to package it all up, isn't it? But essentially, when I was younger, I wanted to be a vet, and then I wasn't very good at maths or science. So then I was like, oh well, get can't really get into that, or it just felt hard. So I kind of went on this sort of spiritual learning of, like, following, leaning into what feels good, what feels easy. What are my strengths? What are my skills and my talents? And then I loved the arts. So did an arts degree, had visions when I was younger of winning an Oscar for screenwriting. Um, Maybe got a bit bogged down in like the things you hear about, going forth in that kind of career, which you'd know all about.
Mm-hmm.
um, and then I was in Canberra, which is public service capital of Australia. So fell into that work, and it sounds dramatic, but my soul was dying. My soul was absolutely dying. I I was just not happy, and it was hard to get to work every day, and it was
Mm.
hard to slug through it. And I could see a lot of people around me who could fight against that feeling and push it away, push it down. But I am not one of those people, not one of my, it's not part of my personality. So I really, and I encourage my clients as well to think about this too. Like, what feels good? What are you feeling? What's the, yeah, what are you feeling in your body? And
Mm.
if it's not feeling good, try something else. Try to, uh, yeah, find what makes you happy. And
Mm.
so that was really what pushed me into going to open my own business. So it was people giving me these hints, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I came across a newsletter, a newspaper article actually, about a woman in Sydney who was organizing homes, and I was like, oh wow, that's a job.
Mm.
Like that's cool. And then it was just this feeling of my soul was dying and I couldn't do it anymore.
Yes.
And then, yeah.
I think, yeah, the dramatic part, I understand why you could label it that, but I think it's very relatable too. I think a lot of people feel that way in the jobs that they land in that perhaps weren't as aligned to what they really, were passionate about doing. So, by that stretch, I think that was a good point of awareness for you. As dramatic as it sounds, it was
Mm,
necessary because I think that helped shape the next part of your career journey. It gave
yeah.
you enough of an urgency to say, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to,
Mm.
try something else. And do you think that that's, I suppose, a big part of your decision, like that, or were you also leaning into the whole following that curiosity and interest about organizing,
Mm.
or was it more of, I have to get out of here and just try whatever it is, try something new?
Yeah. I think the word you use, urgency, is so good, because it was, and it's a feeling and a memory I still return to on my hardest days when I'm like,
Mm.
oh, this is hard, or like, no job's perfect, no, nothing's perfect. So it's like on those days when it's hard, I can put myself back into that memory and just think, no, this is still better than that, or that, just that
Yeah.
urgency. It really was. Yeah, it was a fire that was lit under me that I was just like,
Yes.
no, I want to create impact. I want to do it on my terms.
Mm.
I'm not looking around me and seeing anyone I want to emulate, or I don't want that
Mm.
life. I don't want that, the yeah, I just don't want to keep doing this. So
Mm.
it was a real fire and an
Mm.
urgency.
And that role, working for government public service, I suppose on the outset, having that stability and finding a role where there is a bit of esteem attached to it, right? On
Mm.
the outset, it seems, that you have achieved success. So I wonder how you balance that in terms of, people, or people assuming that you've established yourself in a full-time job,
Mm.
in this particular sector where, you're earning a good income, and, there's that, as I said, esteem attached to it. How did you
Mm.
reconcile that with taking that leap of faith out of that world, and therefore kind of going against what people conventionally see as a successful career?
Such good questions. Well, firstly, um, upfront, I should say, you know, public servants and the people I worked with, like, were doing amazing work, and it's just, I think it takes such a strong personality, I think, to be able to do that sort of work when it can so quickly, what you're working on gets thrown to the side, or it's no longer the priority of the day. So it really does take a strong character to keep going at that.
Mm.
And it's just I just was not in the right place
Mm. It's a different
for
type of
that work.
courage. Mm.
It was, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. So yeah, I have utmost respect for them, and it was. I saw a lot of people doing great work, but I was just like, I was envious. I was envious of them that those who were happy and doing good work, had found their thing, and I just knew that I hadn't. So I think that was part of the leap of faith as well, that I was like,
Mm.
I just, I haven't found that thing that lights me up here. Where can I go? Where can I find that? And it's interesting. So the amount of people, when I was like, I'm going to go to Melbourne and like just try it out for a bit. And I was very lucky. I was able to go at half pay, so I was able to kind of like um, have a little bit of a lifeboat while I experimented with a Melbourne living and kind of trying out something else. But the amount of people who would say to me, like, oh, you're only 5 years off of long service leave, or, like, and I was just like, oh, are you kidding? 5 years? Like, oh my God, I can't imagine being here another 6 months. So yeah, that leap of faith, it was very much, that was also part of why I felt I had to move cities as well. I was just like, I just need a fresh
Mm.
start everywhere. Otherwise, I'm going to get sucked back into this, because
Mm.
it was very much like yeah, I just, it's important, I think, if you're bucking the trend, to be around people who are also doing that, or who are more open to doing something different.
Mm.
So, I mean, at first it was really hard for my parents to, oh, you've given away this really good job and it's
Yeah.
very secure. And starting a business, like, it's very much those first few years, there was not much happening, or there was like very small wins. Um, and so then there would be the comments of like, well, when are you going to, get a real job, or go back, or so there was a lot of that sort of, okay, I can't hear that, or I'm not going to share with you how actually hard this part is, because
Mm.
I don't need that sort of chatter. When
Yeah.
now I can be more honest with my parents about what it was like, but yeah, at the time it was about surrounding myself with people who could support that leap of faith.
Yes.
Um, and
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and that was tricky. But yeah, so that leap of faith, I did it very gradually. I had some part-time jobs while I was building my business up, finding my feet, and then eventually just cut the lifeboats off one by one. And then I
Mm.
was like, here I am, I'm just by myself. Yeah.
I'd love to explore that more, because I feel that we live in a culture that very much heroes success in very, conventional ways, that, as you said before, just having that stability, being able to prove to your parents, or, peers, or the wider world, that, yeah,
Mm,
I'm achieving great things because I've locked into the 9 to 5. I have no financial worries, and, I've got a good
mm,
job title, whatever it is. So we attach a lot of meaning to those things, which, if they have their own merit, it's not to say that they are bad things. It's good to have,
mm,
to be able to be proud of those kind of successes. But I think entrepreneurship's a whole different ball game, as you would know, and a lot um, a lot of that journey isn't really, or we don't really talk a lot about the hard parts of that journey. In my
mm,
experience, I feel we gloss over it and we get to the success, the wins, and the achievement. So I'd
mm,
love for you to be, if you're happy to be open about your experiences with failure, and
mm,
what those hard parts did for you on a personal level,
mm.
and how you navigated it to, I guess, find that resilience and persistence to keep going.
I think essentially it was having a vision or a feeling of what I wanted, and then trying multiple things to try and get there, and then when one didn't work, picking yourself up to try a different way. And so mainly it's the mindset, as well, like to keep going, as well as just those human needs of needing money, needing money to eat and all that, and like, well, how much can I do this? Can I actually keep going on this front, when your when your other needs are not being met. So it can be, yeah, it was hard back in the start. Just to, my lifestyle in Canberra, it was very different to when I moved to in Melbourne, but it was a very conscious decision of like, well, now I'm going to go to a share house. I'm going to really pull back on things that I'd gotten used to buying. Like I went from buying new clothes to op shopping, which I ended up really enjoying. I still enjoy to this day, but it was very much a change in, um, going from like $100 haircut to like, oh, let's try to find the $25 haircut down Elizabeth Street. So like those things of like, well, what can you do to allow this vision to happen in this moment? Um, while feeling or believing like, oh, we are going to get back to what I desire or what I've become comfortable with in the future. So that mindset was probably that's been a lot of my ups and downs, the failures. I've heard business being described as like it's scarcity to abundance again and again, especially when starting out, you just feel like you're so much in scarcity and you're doing so much. You're always trying to make things happen. And then eventually you kind of find your feet. But it is that you do have to go through those failures and those ups and downs and like, oh, that didn't work, try this. Oh, that also didn't work, let's try this. Find your way. And what I would really turn to was a lot of those stories, about the fellow who invented the light bulb, that he was like, oh no, I've just found 99 ways of not creating a light bulb and things like that. So I really clung to stories like that to help me through the ups and downs of, you just be so sure this is going to work and then it doesn't, and like what do you take from that? Do you stop or do you just go, oh, that wasn't the right door, let's try a different door?
That's, I think, such important mindset to have, definitely just that adaptability, I suppose, to welcome change and to pivot when things aren't going your way. I think, yeah, just even that those practical strategies that you said, just finding new ways to shop for clothes or get your hair done. I think that yeah, the adaptability and learning to compromise things. And what you said earlier about just hanging on to that vision, I want to know more about that as well in terms of your motivator for pursuing entrepreneurship and pursuing, I guess, a more creative and courageous path. What was the thing for you that made you, I suppose, adaptable and willing to give up certain things? You talked about your vision, but if you could extrapolate a little bit more.
Yeah, yeah. So my vision was really like I wanted to have fulfilling work that was fun, and I didn't want to be tied to 9 to 5. I wanted to um, do life my way, I suppose. Like I wanted to rest when I wanted to rest. I wanted to work, if I wanted to work late into the night, I wanted to be able to do that. Um, and and I think I like the challenge of like it's not just like a salary that you have. It's like I can increase this, like, or I can, the more I do, the more I get. Whereas if you're in a salary, I just found it really like, if I just do more of this, like it's the same amount. So it was a bit more fun or rigorous or something. Again, it goes back to that urgency, just of like, I saw that I wanted a a different way of being in the world. I wanted to create impact, and I just felt it. I just felt that like this wasn't it. That last life chapter was not it. That's not where I was getting it from. But interestingly, a lot of like everything leads to something. So the skills that I picked up from that still what like support this, and clients that I meet who are in similar roles. I can relate to them, I can help them. So it all kind of comes full circle. So it's like nothing's for nothing. Um, and but it was always the drive was always that vision of I want to work that gives me fulfillment. I want to do life my way. I want to do time my way. And I want to be able to make what I can make, like that reflects my energy output. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I love what you said, nothing's for nothing. I think that's really
Mm.
key as well, because I think often after we graduate, we think that there's this dream job or this dream path that's going to tick all the boxes of what we want for our lives. And then when we happen to find ourselves doing something that is not exactly that, we feel a sense of, our failure or self-doubt. When, as you said, all of those experiences are important because they're the building blocks to get you to where you really want to be.
It was so true. I came out of uni and I think I was like burnt out from like studying. I was like, whew, glad that's done. But glad that was tiring. And then I remember getting into my first job and like I was being asked to like staple things and like, dog's body stuff. And I was like, seriously? Like, you mean I'm just not graduating and getting into a great job? Like,
Yes.
and um, and I looking back, I'm like, oh, I was a little bratty. Like, I was. It was a very sort of entitled.
Mm.
Yeah, I was just like, oh, I've studied hard, and I'm tired. Like, surely, there's the good job that I just walk into, and I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it when I was being asked to do dog's body stuff. But
Yeah.
again, yeah, nothing's for nothing,
Mm.
and it did give me some skills.
Yes. And I think that's like the common stereotype against us millennials and, just younger generations in general, that, there is that sort of entitlement that we feel, but perhaps it's the way we've been conditioned to believe that life would turn out. We were promised that getting a university degree was a one-way ticket to our dream job. So perhaps the realities weren't laid out to us as as real as they could be. So I totally relate to that. But yeah, learning to, I think, earn your stripes and having to do that kind of, menial tasks. I think once we open up that expectation, that even not just after school or after university, but just in life, when you're starting something new or you're still learning and you're still transitioning perhaps your career, that you have to start from scratch. You have to start from the bottom. So learning to, I guess, maybe humble yourself, humble ourselves to the fact that we don't know everything. So, well, I would love to know more about your work, because I think it's so you would come across so many uh, different challenges that people face when it comes to taking those leaps of faith or figuring out what you want to do in your life. And if you could let me know about the kind of people you work with, and what, some of the different backgrounds, and how you kind of navigate those early conversations with them.
I love my work in that there's such a variety of people that come my way. I've had uh, public servants, I've had photographers, I've had business mortgage brokers, osteopaths. I'm currently working with an OH&S fellow, some small business owners. I've worked with a farmer in Tasmania. That was pretty cool. And although there's such a variety of walks of life and the different areas that they're working in, the problems are generally the same. Just that it's prioritizing, it's looking at our tools and how they're supporting us, how they're helping us get our life in order. And what I like especially is that conversation around making choices in this very busy modern world, of just like how much there is that we can like digest, information wise and all that, and how much we can do. So there's like so many people have a lot of things that they want to do. I want to do dancing, I want to read more, I want to open a business, I want to do this, I want to do that. Um, and that creates a lot of overwhelm. So helping people through that overwhelm and giving them permission to like focus on two things, or like, if dancing is it, like focus on dancing, um, rather than thinking that they have to do absolutely everything that's come to mind. Because even though we do have access to all of this information, um, we don't need to do like something with everything that we've come across.
Mm.
So that's what I see a lot of. It's that we're not really taught how to work or how to organize life admin stuff. So I work a
Mm.
lot with people in organizing their work space, digital and physical workspace, looking at their workflow, looking at how to manage their information that's coming their way, how to
Mm.
track their tasks, how to get everything out of your brain, because we've just got so much going on. Like, how can we get everything out so that we're not stressing ourselves in trying to hold on to everything,
Mm.
and putting systems in place to support us. So I work a lot with people to make a brain extension.
Yeah.
Um,
I like that. And obviously the world's changed so much, and how we live and work has really evolved over the
mm,
last, I don't know, 20 years or whatnot, with digital advancements. But I think these, as you said, these challenges are kind of universal, and doesn't matter
mm,
your age or your background. But what do you think are the key strategies that to pass on to, I guess, young people, of figuring out, that life admin? Because I don't think it's something that's
mm.
top of mind. So what kind of are the things you usually lead with when you consult your clients? Like, what are the simple things that they can do to just first make space for thinking about these things?
Um, so first of all, it's making sure that you have everything tracked. If you can envision your next week, do you have that written down? Like, do you have, oh, I'm going to the doctor on Tuesday, or oh, I need to go to work on these days, especially for people doing part-time work. Have that written down and factor in the commuting time. So you have the reality of actually how much time you have. So
Mm,
we're looking at the maths of it. Like, so we all have 168 hours a week, 168 hours a week. But how much of that is actually already gone, like already used up?
mm,
So making sure that we have that all tracked, and that we have it out of our mind, so that you can be like, okay, what's coming up? Because then once you get that out of your mind, then you have this available headspace to think about other things that you want to progress on, and that you want to um, turn your attention to. Because I have clients who, they like to do work on some art, or they want to
mm,
study, or whatnot, and it's an afterthought. So we need to make those things priorities, just like everything else.
mm,
So when are you doing that? Like, okay, so you're getting home, you're having some dinner, that'll take you up to 7:30. Okay, maybe you have an hour. You have an hour to look at this. Like, claim that hour.
mm,
Use it, rather than it turns into 9 o'clock and you're like, oh, I'm too tired and I'm just going to go to bed now, or I'm just going to scroll, and oh gosh, now it's 11 p.m. and now I'm feeling guilty because I'm going to be uh, going to bed late and I won't have a good night's sleep and I have to get up early. So it's taking back control. So that would be my first point: get everything out of your
mm,
mind, be clear on what you're wanting to achieve in a week and what
mm,
time you have available, and use a tool that you trust, like, so Google Calendar, or the Apple Calendar, or whatever it is. Like, make it your brain extension. Really put
Mm,
your everything in there and really trust that I've captured everything that I have going on and my priorities.
mm.
Mm.
It's so interesting
Yeah.
that we're taught that to some degree at school because we need to be organized with our schedule to get to
Mm.
classes and our assignments. But it's something that doesn't tend to bleed into real life. I think we don't
Yeah.
prioritize, when you were saying all that stuff then, that we should be prioritizing our personal lives as much as we do our jobs or studies, because as you said, reclaiming the time that we have, I think, is important, but we don't know unless we write things down, we make a record of, or we see something visually. Even you just saying the maths of it, that 168 hours a week, that we have, like, you never think about it in that way. And I do agree that a lot of us, well, I'm guilty as well, that time elapses when we're scrolling and just kind of doing mindless activities, that it actually takes something, a tangible act, to sit down and actually map out your week and your time. So yeah, really important. So when it comes to actual achieving our goals that we set, I think there's a lot of general inspiration about success and what it takes. Believe in yourself and just keep going. Those kind of general sort of inspirational words. But in your own experience as now as a business owner and establishing yourself a kind of to work with clients, what are some specific and practical lessons you've learned that have enabled you to take action on your goals? So as much as you're helping other people with their goals, for you, Christie, what has worked in your journey to help you achieve the kind of life that you desire?
Well, I definitely walk the talk. So everything is planned out, and I have time put aside for the different things that I'm working on. If it's not calendarized, it's not real in my world. So like, it's just like, my partner will laugh at me that we talk about something and I'm like, oh, I'm just going to write that in my calendar. And he's like, of course you are. I'm like, because otherwise I'm just going to forget it and it's never going to happen. So in order to make my goals happen and that it's yeah, writing it out, sketching it out, and breaking the goal into parts and getting them into my calendar so that I can chip away at it. So it is very much about, yeah, consistency, showing up, and doing the work, but also um, yeah, making sure that I've got the time put aside for those goals,
Mm.
making sure that it's there.
And how do you navigate the times where, when we talked about failure earlier, but just the little self doubts and worries that I know entrepreneurs are facing daily? There was that quote you said before. If you can remind me, the scarcity and
Ah, yes.
abundance. Well,
Yeah, business is scarcity to abundance again and again.
again, and yes, exactly. Another great quote from this conversation. But how do you navigate those times when fear does creep in a little bit? And what do
Mm.
you do in those moments to kind of muster up the courage to keep going according to the goals that you've set out in your calendar and your vision board? How do you?
Mm.
I guess we all wrestle with it in different ways, but what's that like for you?
Yes, great question. A couple of years ago, actually, I got into menstrual cycle awareness as a woman who bleeds. That has been a phenomenal change, and it's something I share with my clients about, because once you can actually track your biology, um, and I can actually see when my confidence is going to be at its lowest. And I can
Interesting.
kind of look at that and go, so yeah, there'll be days when it's like I'm not feeling confident, that inner critic is louder, but understanding my hormones, I can go, okay, this is kind of in line with that. So this is to be expected. So that inner talk is much different 2 years ago when I didn't have that knowledge.
Mm.
So, I mean, even for those who don't bleed, knowing yourself and kind of observing yourself, like what's happening in my environment, what's happening. Um, did I not have good sleep last night? Did I have too much
Mm.
alcohol? Did I not go running? Why is today more of a like a down day compared
Mm.
to the other days? So observing yourself, are you not doing work at a time that suits you best compared to other times? So really getting to know what works for you and what doesn't, I think
Mm.
supports that that yeah, that inner critic and that stuff that just can flare up and really throw you off course. But yeah, the
Mm.
menstrual cycle awareness has been huge for me in realizing my confidence and looking at that. And I love, yeah, reading and researching personal development. So I got really into like understanding about high sensitivity, looking at introversion versus extroversion, and kind of
Mm.
like really understanding all of that. So I have a few tools and a few rituals that when I'm having down days that I can turn to. And sometimes it's as simple as it's time for a nap, or like
Mm.
or I need to stop and journal, or and I know I've been talking about calendaring a lot of things, but even with planning stuff out, you put in buffering time in that, and you're like, well, today is not the day. It's not happening. I
Mm.
know I've got a week's buffer here, so I'm going to move this to into in like, well, I'm going to shuffle things down so they still fit, but I'm allowing for this human moment of just needing to stop.
Mm.
So allowing that space, and yeah, and that's been one of the biggest takeaways for me with menstrual cycle awareness, has just been like, I don't have like, I knew I didn't have to be on all the time, and I knew I couldn't be on all the time,
Mm.
but that awareness really supported that
Mm.
and has helped with confidence and um, just awareness of that at the end of the day, we're all just animals, very intelligent animals.
That's so true about educating yourself about your own body, and not just your body, but that holistic sense of body, mind, and soul. Knowing the inner workings of who you are. I think I suppose there's a move towards that, with the wellness movement and people just being more aware of the kind of personalities you mentioned before about being an introvert or extrovert, that kind of thing. I think
Mm,
it really does enable you to figure out what works for you. So I definitely think that's
mm,
a great piece of advice for young people, because it's not something that comes naturally sometimes. Like we're so busy with things, with life, and now with social media and all these other distractions, that knowing how we're
mm.
feeling,
Yeah.
taking the time to reflect and even just think. I find that we're in a culture where that's not encouraged much, because even when we wait in line for things, we have this need to be on our phone, or wanting to
Mm,
have that dopamine hit, somehow, that instant gratification. So I really like this idea of
mm,
consciously thinking about how you feel and what your body's telling you, and the ebbs and flows of it. And you said before too, knowing that you don't have to be on all the time. Again, the culture of busyness and productivity tends to pressure us too. So
mm,
I guess that is very pertinent to you as a business owner as well. I feel that way in entrepreneurship, that there's this need to always be doing. So
mm,
how do you set up your days? I suppose I'm curious about what's the ideal day for you? How do you still have that future forward thought about how you want to take your business, but then also
mm,
finding joy in just the moment that you have right now?
Oh, that's lovely. My ideal day. I like a mixture of some deep focused work and meetings or client work. So it's interesting, even in winter. So I kind of change my schedule winter and summer. So winter at the moment, getting up, just having a really slow morning and enjoying a coffee. And I do my exercise in the afternoon, whereas in the summer I like to switch that up. And being in the dark, yeah, I don't like it. So I switched that up. So yeah, slow morning, get into work. I like starting work at about 10, having some time to do some writing and some. Uh, I'm better in the morning for that stuff, and then I like the client work from about just after lunch, about 12:31. Yeah, and then just that mixture of having some time to progress a project or a new offer, and then to connect with clients in the afternoon, and then wrap up and see my partner, exercise, and or some friends. And yeah, that's sort of my ideal day, of that balance of a bit of progression on something, but then also some, like, yeah, helping others, and the client work reminds me as to, yeah, why I'm doing what I'm doing.
And do you feel you've come to a point where you're confident in how you've set up your days? Because I know that, I myself have felt pressure of still trying to align with that 9 to 5 typical work schedule. Like, do you feel now that you're at a point where you're confident in how you run your business without having to compare yourself?
I think the comparison trap is always going to be there, unfortunately. Um, you've caught me on a day when I'm feeling quite like confident and comfortable in my the way that I've set things up, but next week could be totally different, where I'm like, oh, I should be doing more, and then I'll be coaching myself to like do it your way, and and saying all of that stuff to myself. So that even ebbs and flows. That sometimes I'm like on a roll and very grateful for the good times, and then other times it's you feel like that game Snakes and Ladders.
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yes.
feel like, oh, I've climbed a ladder, and then the next thing, oh gosh, now I'm back down the
Yeah.
snake, and yeah, it's
Yeah.
just that.
Well, that's another great analogy, and
Um,
I think speaks to, this, idea of courage, that we we have to expect those downtimes where we kind of fall,
mm,
and then there are those climbs, and then there's the descents, that's part of it. So I'm going to throw now to one of the big questions. So I'll give you some time to think about it. But Christy, for you, how do you define courage? So, given everything that was spoken about, given your own entrepreneurial journey, what does courage look like to you?
I think just trying. I have so many people in my circle who say like, "Oh, I wish I could do that," or "I wish I could start my own business," or "Oh, you're so brave," or that sort of thing. And it's like, just trying impresses people, I think.
Mm, yeah.
So I think it's just the courage to like admit that, oh, this isn't what I really want to do. Okay, let's try to do what I want to do. So like, if it came to it that I had to revert to a traditional job that wasn't quite up my alley, at least I had always had this experience of,
Mm,
at least I gave it a shot, you
yeah.
know, rather than if I was still sitting in my cubicle in Canberra and thinking, oh, I really should do that. Or, like, oh, this is really killing me. I should do something different. At
Mm,
least I tried. So I think courage, yeah, it's about trying. It's about
mm,
um, making, I don't know, making the effort,
yeah.
giving yourself the best shot for happiness. I think that's
Mm,
courage.
I love that. And as you know, I've seen like a theme in our chat is that responding to the call, like listening to the signs that are kind of around you, whether it's people saying, picking, recognizing gifts that you have, or your inner, your understanding your own wants and needs, just being receptive to those, and then taking action on it. I think, your yeah, those are, I think, important things. Yeah, just giving it a go, as simple as it is, but you'll never know, right? If you don't just take that leap of faith. Yeah, so I think that's wonderful. And if you haven't noticed already, I love a metaphor and an analogy. I'm a bit of a nerd that way. But another question, and one of the final ones I have for you today, is what do you think, if we think about courage as being your main course, so your main meal, right? Plate of courage. What do you think is a good side dish, or what pairs well with courage? Whether it's another virtue or trait, habit, skill, mindset, whatever it is, what do you believe best complements your plate of courage?
Ooh,
You can have a few side
curious.
dishes. You could have a beverage. Just other attributes that I think people, if we harness and we learn to tap into, will help guide
Mm,
us along the way.
yeah, I think curiosity, definitely
Mm,
curiosity.
I love that.
Being curious in everything, like everything that's presented to you. Where could this lead me? What's the message? Yeah, so curiosity, very good side dish.
Love it.
Um, and oh, now I really want to think of a beverage to go with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think curiosity. Let's just
Yeah.
go with
Plate
curiosity.
of courage with a side
Curiosity.
of curiosity. I love it. That is what opens you up in terms of, learning, and that whole personal development thing that you mentioned before. It's just
Mm,
leaning into that and just giving it a go, trying. Uh,
yes.
is there anything else along those lines about building courage and working hard, and believing in your vision on your road to what
Mm,
success looks like, that you'd like to share with people listening, and maybe perhaps particularly young people who might be curious about non-conventional pathways like entrepreneurship or any other creative sort of venture that doesn't really have a defined path? What else would you like to
mm.
share with them?
Well, I always thought with my own business that like, well, no one says to accountants like, oh, we've got too many of you. Like, we're not, like, or
True.
no one stops the coffee shop owner, especially in Melbourne, from like, oh, we've got too many coffee. Um, they're like, we're done, thanks. So it you might look around, especially at the start, and think, oh, it's already being done, or oh, I can't, it's already being done. What can I bring? But yeah, you're a different flavor. You're a different take on it. So just do it. Yeah, I always think that in my low days, like, well, no one's telling the accountant or the lawyer that, well, we've got too many of you. So yeah, like it might not. Yeah, my work's not as conventional, but yeah, there's space for it. Yeah,
Mm.
there's space for us all. So yeah,
Yes,
give it a go.
yes. And that's so true, because we there are so many similar, I suppose, whether it's, people doing certain work, or even companies, brands that are in a similar pocket, whether it's a clothing brand, or, but
Mm,
we're all coexisting, right?
yeah,
There's a need for everything. So that's so true. That's so true. Thank you for that,
yeah.
Christy. I'd like to just, I guess, take this moment just to acknowledge you for a minute, to thank you not only for participating in, this podcast, and offering all of your insights and wisdom, but just for generally being a person that displays courage. Since we met, I would say, a few years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. I can't recall exactly, but even just having this confident spirit. I think you've got this quiet, confident spirit in you. I think that's why we connected at that event, and you were just so easy to talk to. You've got such a calm and nurturing nature, and I always find our walking away from our conversations just really thinking. You make me think about things, and I think in your own work and your this wonderful business that you've started, you display a courage that I admire, to be able to put yourself out there and make your videos on YouTube and LinkedIn. I feel like, I'm working myself up to get to that point. So I really look to you as someone that displays that courage. So thank you for being that person for me. And you've always just got such a positive attitude to things, and in a way that isn't overwhelming, but just I can feel it in you when we chat, and I'm sure the listeners will find that this general optimistic nature that you have. So thank you for sharing your story with us. And I'd like to throw to you now. Is there any project that you're working on that you'd like to share, or where can people connect with you and find you online?
Well, I am on www.floranorder.com. So it's FLORANDORDER.com. My website, I've got the blog posts up there, and on Instagram as well. I'm big on Instagram, but yeah, happy to chat with people. I do like tailored coaching sessions with people, so open to discussing whatever people might need, really. But thank you so much for that lovely segment, and you're so sweet. So thank you so much. That was really made my heart feel full.
Well, Christie Flora, it's been a pleasure.